of the things that Jeff was speaking to his deck, what he really likes it against, is he likes it against the Siege Rhino decks in the format. Cards like Savage Knuckleblade alongside Stratus Dancer and Collected Company doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, Reflector Mage just good against creatures as well. Helps you punch through with Nux and Snapping Gnarlid.
All right, on your right is Scout Schauf. He's playing 4-color Rally. On Jeff, your left is Jeff with 4-color Company. Both players will start on Flooded Strands. Now, for Jeff's side, that he has cards like Mantis Riders, that generally figures to be pretty good against Rally.
Yeah, being able to fly is super relevant against Rally. And while Reflector Mage is reasonably good against Mantis Rider, it does get to connect for 3 the turn you play it, assuming it's not caught by a Collected Company in tandem with the Reflector Mage.
Eiley, the Eternal Pilgrim, is the turn 2 play for Schauf. We'll see what Hoogland answers with a pair of Stratus Dancers. He actually mentioned, talking with him about the deck, one of the things he likes about Stratus Dancer is in this shell, he frequently plays them as 2/1 flyers.
The old Welcome turn. It's not quite on that level. It can block non-flying creatures, but it's a really good way to get aggressive. You have an evasive body. For example, a Sylvan Advocate does not line up well against Alien until you have 6 lands in play. Alien not only being a 2/3, but also having Death Touch.
Red and blue are the fetches for Hoogland, so he is setting up for his 2 basics and maybe a possible Mantis Rider on turn 3.
That would be huge. You'd have 5 power in the air already.
Let's go back over to Scott. He has his 3rd land, swings for 2, Hoogland down to 16. He may just try to race back. His creatures are not significantly smaller than Jeff's. It's Nantuko Husk for Schauf.
Yeah, Husk attacks for the same amount of damage as the Stratus Dancer, and casting Reflector Mage on the Dancer, while a tempo play, not super significant. Jeff would be able to play it face down if he wanted to, and also that would unlock the Negate ability.
And now here's Jeff's, he's going to try to race back. He fetches down to 15, but then swings for 5 in the air, Schauf down to 13. It's Mantis Rider for Hoogland.
Yeah, this puts a lot of pressure on Schauf here.
Well, he does have Reflector Mage, and that's what he'll cast. It's going to reflect the Mantis Rider, a swing for 4. Hoogland's down to 11. He won't be able to recast that Mantis Rider, and he is suffering from having some dead cards in hand. He has a pair of Valorous Stances, I believe.
Yeah, those aren't going to do anything unless he has access when the Nantuko Husk has sacrificed something, though there aren't a lot of windows for that in most games.
Was not going to deter Jeff. He takes to the skies again, moving it up at 11, and he will reflect back. Eiley back to Schauf's hand. And a pass. Both players missing land drops here. It's going to be Schauf to hit his 4th land first. It's Sunken Hollow. Into play untapped, and he'll go straight for Collected Company.
Yeah, sees some blue mana out of Jeff. Not going to mess around doing anything other than main phase here.
Yeah, we already saw a face-up Mantis Stratus Dancer. You don't... Yeah, there's some counter spells for sure.
Right.
Looks like he found at least 1 Reflector Mage.
Getting that blocker out of the way and getting in for 4 damage when Jeff is on 11. Pretty big swing.
Mage and Sifter both into play. So Mage will bounce Hoogland's Reflector Mage. This will really take advantage of the fact that Jeff is stuck on lands. So swing in for 4. He could put Jeff to 1. Now, it's probably not just yet, but this is close.
Yeah. You'd consider sacrificing something like the Scion just to scry 1, though it doesn't bother with that. Could make use of the mana next turn as well.
Jeff draws a Windswept Heath. His hand is ballooning with cards here. Creatures continue to get bounced to his hand.
Yeah, I saw the Mantis Rider unlock last turn. Doesn't really do a lot here.
Yeah.
Schauf's life total is low, but Jeff's is lower.
Right. Well, Jeff was never situated to block.
Yeah, there's been a lot of creatures returned to Jeff's hand this game.
Right, this is one of the unfair parts, right? Jeff is playing an aggro deck, and Schauf's playing a combo deck, but at the same time, it's... You look at the board, and Schauf's just winning the aggro race. He's not doing anything unfair.
Reflector Mage is a pretty messed up Magic card.
Yeah. Here comes Mantis Rider. Schauf down to 8. Jeff will pass. He has 1 mana open. I don't believe he has anything he can cast with it. What looks to be some Sidisi's Faithfuls in Schauf's hand should lock up this one for the rally deck.
Yep, has lethal power in play. Just got to remove those blockers.
He will crack a fetch land to join Jeff at 7.
Trying to think if there's anything that Jeff is representing here. Could have something like a wild slash or fiery impulse, but that's pretty far from mattering in this game. Can't find a black source with Windswept Heath, so you don't have to worry about anything like Murderous Cut.
Here's Eiley. Here's Sidisi's Faithful unsummoning a creature, and Jeff will pack up the cards. Game 1 is over to Scott Schauf in 4-color rally.
Yeah, Jeff kind of stumbled on mana there. Schauf pulled ahead with that Collected Company in a big way and just kind of sat in the driver's seat for most of the game.
All right, well, we're going to go and look at the sideboards. I am interested to see what Jeff Hoogland has on the sideboard. With the mana bases he usually puts together, he's got a lot of interesting cards. Well, let's walk through them.
Yeah, so Dispel and Disdainful Stroke are able to copy the most important cards in this matchup, the Collected Companies and also the Rally of the Ancestors. You could bring in Roast to deal with a creature on the ground. It's not very exciting, but it does help you beat down. I don't even know what Frostwalker does as a sideboard card. We see this in Teamer sideboards.
Well, it's generally for the ramp matchups. Decks that don't have removal spells. I mean, a 4-1's going to be pretty good there, but I can't see that getting through the sea of creatures Schauf's going to bring.
Yeah, and then he has some Void Grafters. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's the 2/4 uncommon in blue-green that gives flash and gives a creature hexproof until end of turn.
So you can technically use that to blank the text on a Reflector Mage, which is worth considering. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we saw that one come in here. It's also a 2/4, which just blocks everything in Scott's deck outside of an Antuco Husk profitably.
So Dispels, Void Grafters, perhaps. Interesting one, to say the least. On Schauf's side, he's got Dispels, Murders, Cuts, Clerics, Despise, Duress, Minister Pain. I'm not sure he wants anything.
I would be looking at the Murderous Cuts. I think we do see that Jeff is on Mantis Riders, which can be a big problem for the Rally deck. So for that reason, I would like to see some Murderous Cuts come in. And there's a good chance, Jeff has shown us blue mana. Maybe the Dispels matter, though we did see Stratus Dancer as well. So maybe Jeff doesn't have a lot of those, is what Scott's thinking. So I think it might just be Murderous Cut. We could see some of those Duresses and Dispels, though.
Oh, we'll see how they board in a second here. Coming up at the beginning of April, we've been talking about the Shadows over Innistrad pre-release, but how about the Shadows over Kittenstrad? That's going to be happening in Roanoke, Virginia, April 2nd and 3rd at the Game Center, Star City Games Game Center. This exclusive playmat is given with each entry if you're in the area, so you're definitely going to want to show up to see that one. If you are not close to the Roanoke area, extra copies will be on sale in the Game Center over the weekend, and online you can get them on the website Monday morning. This is, if you can make it to the event though, the artist Andrea Radek will be on hand to do signings of the playmats. So whether it's individual or two-headed giant pre-releases, you can find out more at starcitygames.com/pre-release to register.
That playmat is fantastic.
It's got cat on it, 10 out of 10.
That's not what I was looking at so much.
Oh, I just saw the cat. Was there, what else? There was more?
I'm a big fan of parody more than anything.
So for Jeff Hoogland, our number 1 here on the leaderboard, the player from Bloomington, Illinois, well known here for his modern finishes on the Open Series, has top-aided all 3 moderns we've had here. Known as quite the brewer, he has made it to the Players' Championship back in 2014. He has 13 Open Series top 8s, but still looking for his first win. Stay-at-home dad with 2 sons. If you follow him on Twitter, he talks about them all the time, sometimes even streams with them. Does coding in Linux as well. Really known, I guess, as a mid-rangey 3 and 4 color player. So when in Modern, you frequently play things like Kiki Chord or Jeskai Dragon style decks. So we see that a lot of times in Standard as well.
Yeah, likes to explore the cards that really nobody else is playing. Tries to find things that other players don't see, and you do get an edge playing a deck your opponent's not very familiar with.
Yeah, dual lands, frequently gold cards, gold creatures is the recipe here. So he'll start on Jace Prodigy turn 2. 3 of them in his list this weekend. Not normally a number we see on that card.
Yeah, maybe he sat down to register and realized that he only brought 3 copies with him.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
That's just the worst.
You only need 1, right? As long as you have 1, you can just register as many as you want. As long as you play the checklist cards.
Yeah, put them in the check. Well, what do you do if you have a planeswalker and you want to play a creature?
Okay, we need 2. We need 2. That's not true. You have to have as many as you register. We'll see what Schauf answers as far as 2-drops go. His deck's not typically going to kill a Jace right away. And look, you see Jeff here, the first 2 cards in the front of his hand, Reflector Mage Plains. Just looks at them, checks, yep, I got this.
All right, so probably doing this on turn 3.
Yeah, if Schauf plays a Jace, I will. If it's a Visionary, I'm less excited. I don't know if I want to reflect. He plays Visionary. I don't know if I want to reflect Visionary to Schauf's hand. Is that necessary?
Yeah, Jeff would rather have something like a Savage Knuckleblade or a Mantis Rider than to be messing around with that.
Big Nux. We'll see if he can put it together. He has Bounding Krasis in hand.
Now he's holding that
there's
mountain.
Nux. There we go. I love it when my deck has basic planes and Savage Knuckleblade. Big fan. No, he actually still gets it on turn 3. He's going to fetch Windswept Heath for the Forest and gets the 4/4 into play.
It's a pretty big turn. We'll see if Scott has a Reflector Mage to try to contain this Knuckleblade.
Outside of it being a 4/4, I don't see many of these abilities showing up in this matchup. Maybe the threat of pumping is okay.
If you find yourself with an embarrassment of mana and your opponent tries to Reflector Mage or Knuckleblade, you could pick it up in response so that you could play it next turn.
All right. Here's Catacomb Sifter for Schauf. Same time, he can get chumped.
Also true. Future copies are likely to be receiving haste.
Draw for the turn, a land from Hoogland. He has 3 lands, Reflector Mage, Snapping Gnarlid. So Knuckleblade will swing for 4. Looks like Schauf will take the damage. Hoogland will loot. Jace draws him a Disdainful Stroke. That's pretty decent here. As next turn is when the Collected Companies could begin for Schauf. Now he's got to play. I think he's going to discard a land. He has to plan out his mana, however.
Yeah, he has already discarded his basic mountain. Now the basic plane's gone, so looking at playing with battle lands mostly.
Yeah, he does have 2 basics in play. So he will play the Windswept Heath. And see whether he wants to play Gnarlid or just he can hold up Disdainful. So his choices here: he could play Gnarlid and hold up Disdainful Stroke, or he could pass with all his mana up, leaving up Bounding Krasis and Disdainful Stroke. He chose the second.
Yeah, I think that leaving one of those 2 spells up is going to be more powerful. This is the turn where Scott could start casting Collected Company. And if that doesn't happen, if mana is tapped on that turn, just getting that Krasis into play, getting more board presence seems relevant.
Yeah, the Gnarlid doesn't add too much here. Schauf is going to swing the team, and Jeff can do everything here. Well, maybe not. So we'll see what he can do with Bounding Krasis. I believe it just taps and untaps creatures.
Correct.
So you can't do the trick where he flashes into play and untaps a land for a Disdainful Stroke, unfortunately.
Right, but it can, I believe, untap Savage Knuckleblade.
Oof, that sounds pretty good. Now there's some worry here. If he does this, he's going to go for his play. Now Schauf has an opportunity to resolve Collected Company.
That would be bad news for Jeff.
I believe he has it, so we will see how this plays out. Taking down Disdainful Stroke may have cost Hoogland here. We'll see what Bounding Krasis targets.
Could also just untap Jace and flip that.
Well, that seems... Well, he can flip it next turn, too, right? It will be interesting. It might work. So he's targeting the Knuckleblade. In response, now Schauf gets the Collected Company. And it looks like he's going to find Reflector Mage, Husk, Sifter, and Elvish Visionary. And this was the danger of Jeff taking down Disdainful Stroke.
That's a big swing for Scott.
Reflector Mage and Nantuko Husk. He will bounce the Knuckle Blade before it gets to untap. Crisis will block Sifter. 2 damage in, Hoogland's to 16. Draw here from Hoogland. He cannot recast the Savage Knuckle Blade, so he will loot with Jace. Yavimaya Coast the draw. Looks like he's thinking about getting rid of that Gnarlid.
Yeah, you don't want to just keep playing lands the rest of the game. Needs at least 1 landfall trigger for it to even attack into a 2/3 creature.
Decides to bin the Yavimaya Coast. At the moment, his whole graveyard is just lands.
Yeah, the Jace will manage the board a little bit. Bubble, Sailor Reflector Mage, something like that, though not be able to generate real value just yet.
Here's Reflector Mage from Hoogland. He will reflect away the Nantuko Husk. Jace is going to plus on a creature. We'll see which one. And here comes Krasis. It will bound across the battlefield. And Schauf down to 10. So Hoogland can try to sneak these last damages across. He's going to have to do it before Schauf gets too many creatures on the board.
Right. Now Jeff is back to having Disdainful Stroke up, which is pretty huge. A lot of the stuff that Scott can have on this turn does cost 4 or more. The big haymakers being Collected Company and Rally the Ancestors, which are just offline now. All right, so 3 mana creatures will still play here. He's not terribly behind on the board. So he is still battling what Jeff is doing, though the Savage Knuckle Blade will be able to attack with impunity in a minute here.
Yeah, Schauf gets a Jace on the in play as well. Really clogs up things here.
At some point, we're wondering just how many fetchable lands Jeff has in his deck.
That's what I'm counting, right?
He's discarded a bunch of basics. He only has 1 copy of the basics and I believe 1 copy of individual battle lands.
He has a Cinderglade and a Prairie Stream left in his deck, and that is it to fetch.
And he did discard Yavimaya Coast too, which might have been better for him than a fetch land.
So of note, yeah, he cannot get, that fetch land he has in play is just Prairie Stream.
That is what he needs to cast Disdainful Stroke, so there is that.
He passes. And he may want to make that fetch now, because if he draws Prairie Stream, then he's Stone Rained himself.
Yeah. Probably a good move to do that on the upkeep, so you never have to take down Disdainful Stroke.
Exactly. So we go back over to Schauf. He's going to loot with Jace. That's going to flip his Jace. Look at his hand here. He's got 2 rallies, Visionary, Husk. This is great. He'll discard an extra Jace. We'll flip into the Planeswalker. Jace Telepath Unbound. And it's going to go to work plussing. Shrink the Knuckle Blade. And I kind of like this from Schauf. He's just going to keep putting creatures on the board. Here's Visionary. He'll draw a card. Draws another land.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't have any flyers just yet, so he's able to just hold Jeff at bay. Force him to keep leaving up that Disdainful Stroke, and inevitably Schauf could pull ahead on the board, or Jeff could be forced to commit his mana.
Yeah, he does have Knuckle Blade down to a 2/4 right now. Jeff, of course, can pump it to a 4/6, but 3 mana is a big investment for Hoogland.
Right, and then even then, all it can really do is eat a Visionary. Doesn't have Trample, no matter how many of its abilities you activate.
Schauf will play Nantuko Husk now. So all the pieces are falling into line for the rally deck. He has the Husk. He has a Sifter. He has a lot of creatures. Now, he doesn't have Cutthroat or Haruspex yet, but...
Right, a bit short of an actual combo turn, but still doing a very good job of playing ABC Magic at this point.
And here's another Reflector Mage for Hoogland. He's going to reflect away the Nantuko Husk. Jace will shrink the Reflector Mage. Now, Jeff appears to be building up toward an emblem with Jace.
Yeah, that could break this game wide open. Then Jeff doesn't even have to be winning on the board. He can just keep casting spells.
And maybe where we're headed. We'll see. Recast from Schauf. It's going to be a Zulaport Cutthroat.
Interestingly, Schauf has 2 copies of Rally in his hand, and if you use Jace to mill him a bunch with a sacrifice outlet and a cut turret on the table, 16 is not such a safe life total.
How is it here? There's a Duress in Schauf's hand. So he does have a Collected Company in his graveyard, so if he wants to push things through, he can. Hoogland will play Stratus Dancer, face down. Now Schauf saw Stratus Dancer game 1, so he knows that it could be that. Den Protector is probably also on his radar. Jace to 9 Shrinking Reflector Mage. Now Schauf will have to make a move. Or I guess let himself get milled. Draws a 3rd copy of Rally.
Yeah, that'll help him battle through a counterspell, the onboard Stratus Dancer, and inevitably Rally in a big way. So it's entirely possible that Scott just wants Jeff to pull the trigger on this emblem.
I am a little surprised we didn't see that Duress get fired at some point here. Now that's into Stratus Dancer, it's less likely to work.
Yeah, and also part of the thing is with 3 rallies, you don't need to make one happen just now. You have plenty of time. And Jeff's still not with an abundance of mana.
Well, the thing is that Jeff can't push damage. You know? When we see these Bant Company decks, they can continue to attack here with the help of cards like Death Mist Raptor and Den Protector. Jeff doesn't, he has Savage Knuckleblade, which in some matchups is better than Death Mist Raptor. It's harder to kill, it's a little bit bigger, but in this matchup, I think it's just worse.
Right.
It's not breaking the board stall, whereas his other cards would be.
Jeff really wishes that he had Mantis Rider instead of Knuckleblade.
There we go. Well, speak of it, here's Mantis Rider. It's going to swing Schauf down to 6. Oh, my.
Yeah, 6 not entirely accurate with the Husk and the Cutthroat in play, but if he sacrifices too many creatures, he can find himself dead.
All right, Windswept Heath played by Jeff. So those 2 fetch lands represent the remaining 2 lands in his deck. If he draws Cinderglade or Prairie Stream, then those lands will no longer count.
So on this turn, Schauf has the ability to Duress and also cast a Rally the Ancestors, though he should be wary if he sees that the coast is quote-unquote clear according to Jeff's hand.
Sure, I mean, there's that Stratus Dancer. He's got to have it on his radar.
If he ends up sacrificing too many creatures, he could leave himself dead.
Here's Duress. If you're Hoogland, I suspect, he'll let that happen. He'll show Gnarlid and Disdainful Stroke, so Stroke is gone. Jace up to 8. That's going to target Mantis Rider, I can only assume. And he'll pass the turn. So what you're wondering is whether or not Schauf end step tries Rally, end step, and main phase?
Yeah, if you go for a Rally when you know that Jeff is just had 1 blank card in hand.
Yep.
If you just sacrifice a bunch of creatures prior to that Rally before Jeff gets a chance at combat, you could find yourself dead.
So now that Scott knows Jeff's hand, Jeff is going to wisely fetch the remaining 2 lands out of his deck before he draws one of them.
Yeah, about time.
He was playing with fire by not cracking those fetch lands.
Indeed.
All future fetch lands will not count for Jeff. They will have nothing to find.
Jeff's still expressing no interest in making an emblem with his Jace.
I wouldn't want to. I mean, my opponent's deck plays a bunch of rallies. Schauf down to 5. Jace to 11.
I think that Jeff picked up a blue card with art not dissimilar to Negate.
He does have 1 Negate in his deck. That would be one heck of a draw. So now Scott's sacrificing creatures. He's going for it. And oh, that would be such a beating if Jeff picked up the Negate, wouldn't it?
Absolutely it would. Schauf has the ability to cast a Rally end step and then cast another one on his turn.
Oh, don't do it, Scott. Jeff drew the out.
Yeah, Jeff has you covered in 2 ways, though.
I mean, I think it's probably still correct for Schauf to go for this.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot else that he can do.
I mean, he knows that. Right, okay, so, yeah. All right, here's the mana. He's going to rally for 3. That's not going to work. If you're Jeff, do you flip the Stratus Dancer?
I think that you cast a spell from your hand on this one in case Scott just draws Duress.
He did just draw the Negate. Oh, that's so savage.
Yeah, Jeff should really counter this with Dispel in his hand so that he still has access to Stratus Dancer. Well, actually, that's not necessarily the case, because Reflector Mage could also turn off the Morph, so you're kind of in a rock and a hard place. Between Faithful and Reflector Mage, it's probable there's more bounce effects than there are discard spells or dispels, but it's hard to say.
I mean, it's a counter spell, but Jeff, what's going to happen here is Scott's going to go for another rally, and then Jeff's going to win the game.
Right. Yeah, 9 is not enough life here.
Here's another rally, and yeah, Jeff did draw the one to get you there, Scott. That's going to kill him. I assume, I haven't counted it, but that is, oh, it's dead by a lot.
Yeah.
And here's another Mantis Rider. In case it wasn't already dead, now it is.
A little bit more. I think it was dead by 3-ish before, and now it's, yeah.
So it looks like we're headed to game 3. Scott Schauf setting up for what was he hoped would be the 1-2 punch to win the game. Jeff Hoogland, with one turn, draws his one of negate out of the board to take it to 3.
Timely top deck. Scott's hand a little glutted with at least 1 too many copies of Rally.
Yeah, I mean, he did want 2 of them, but you're right. Oh, so close, so close. Going back to sideboard, we're going to take a look at Scott Schauf's side. So now he knows that what Jeff's sideboard plan is. He's going to expect some number of dispels, negates, Stratus Dancers. That's a lot of counter magic to work through. Does it change anything for Scott?
I think that he was already kind of assuming that was happening. And if Murderous Cut didn't look good before, I think it looks a lot better now, considering that the Murderous Cut technically fights something of a counter war against the face-down Stratus Dancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we definitely want those in, and you still want those Duresses and probably some number of the Dispels. You gotta be a little bit careful about sideboarding out too many of your creatures, because you're still playing a game on the board for a lot of the game, but all of those spells are things that you want in your deck. And we saw him draw 3 copies of Rally. It's entirely probable that that should be shaved down to at most 2 copies.
Yeah, in these kind of matchups, that card certainly can be limited in how good it is. So Jeff Hoogland, number one currently on our leaderboard. Now he's hoping to take that into the Invitational, where that will get him, maybe as the Invitational winner, to get that first win for him, also his likeness on a card. Now that's something that we give to all our Invitational winners as we work toward our Season 1 Invitational. Last December, that winner was Caleb Shear. He won, actually not playing Legacy Storm, which is the deck that he's known for, is what was all the more impressive, starting out 3-3, running the table with Affinity and Modern and Abzan Aggro and Standard, eventually defeating Vidyantu Ajaya in the finals. He qualified for the Invitational that weekend and won the Invitational, and that token was his reward. Now that is given away at all of our opens and classics here in Season 1, which really just means this weekend in Baltimore. So if you want one of these and haven't gotten one yet, you can head out to Baltimore to get one. Now, if that is not something you can make and you're still interested in one, we do send them in all orders from StarCityGames.com as well of at least $5. So you're going to want to get your hands on this one while you still can before we get another Invitational winner, which would mean another token.
Right. It's also a really good way to keep track of prowess. Just line up the Caleb counter so you don't just have dice floating around that could get knocked off of something. You know, give you a baseline for that.
I like using it for Surge. That's my favorite one. If I put one on the board, that means Surge is good.
Can you Surge that? Let me check.
Let me check. Yes, Caleb's here. Caleb approves.
And if you really having difficulty tracking some Caleb tokens down, you could always ask Eric Hawkins. I believe he has approximately 400 of them already.
So how many would you want then?
He wants as many as possible because he wants to make Caleb sign them all.
You know, I believe if your art's on a card, you're contractually obligated to sign every copy that someone brings you.
I'd be pretty put off if you wouldn't sign your own token for me. I wouldn't be put
400?
off if I had 400 of them. I would assume that there would be some kind of fee for that. But yeah, Caleb, very relaxed, very friendly guy. He would be more than happy to sign your storm counters for you.
Caleb 2-2 today. He is trying to get back to the Players' Championship by getting one of those top 3 finishes. Currently on the outside in 7th place. He was very much in the thick of things earlier. His Open Series performances have taken a downturn over the last few weeks, and he's finding himself on the outside right now. He may need a top 8 next weekend in Baltimore to send him to the Players' Championship.
Yeah, he's still in it this weekend, though. That start is definitely rough.
Scott keeping on 7 on the play. Jeff 6 on the draw. Scry is to the bottom. We're underway with game 3 here. Needle Spires is the first land for Jeff. I love this. We're 4-color aggro, and yet we still find room for Needle Spires.
Well, you need creature lands in your aggressive deck, right?
It is true. And they are good in Jeff's deck.
Yeah, he's not doing anything on turn 1 either.
Jeff, though, his hand appears to be very land heavy. I don't know if he has any other spells outside of a Dispel that he's kept.
So he really needs the body on that land.
He really needs creatures.
Yeah, he would need 6 lands to attack with Needle Spires and leave up Dispel. And if that's all he's doing, well...
Yeah. Well, I'll correct myself. I believe he has a Disdainful Stroke in hand as well as the Dispel. Because that makes it, that makes it better, right?
Kind of. You can deal with 2 Collected Companies.
How about Catacomb Sifters? Scott just plays a bunch of Catacomb Sifters.
Can't deal with any Catacomb Sifters.
Well, here's the 3/4. Well, 2/3, and its buddy, the 1/1. So that's a clock, unless Jeff has a creature.
Yeah, Jeff has a lot of creatures that line up quite well in this position. A Mantis Rider off the top, a Savage Knuckleblade. That would do a lot of work.
Sylvan Advocate. Even Reflector Mage would be fine.
Yeah.
Most creatures, but he needs one of them.
Yes.
And he'll start getting punished for each turn he doesn't draw a creature now.
Knocking on his deck for any's. See what he finds.
Mantis Rider, there we go. Turn 3, that'll be great.
How about best possible?
That probably was the best draw for him, wasn't it?
Yep.
Well, we have a game. Jeff, Mantis Rider lands, Disdainful Stroke, Dispel.
Though,
yeah.
This is the potential Collected Company turn, so he's going to wait until he has 4 mana.
That is a heads-up play by Jeff, but this is, that's an expensive play to not play the Mantis Rider there.
Yeah, really big tempo swing.
Well, the hard part, so he's now going to send the turn back to Jeff. So Scott is leaving up Collected Company mana for sure.
And Scott actually appears to have 2 copies of Company in his hand. So if we see Jeff cast Mantis Rider, he'll be able to counter the one that's cast off of the Scion this turn, but not the one that's cast by 4 mana next turn.
So Jeff fetches for a land, casts Mantis Rider. Scott goes ahead and gets his Evolving Wilds to turn into a swamp. Jeff leaving up Flooded Strand. That is his Dispel that he's leaving up.
Yep.
For sure. Mantis Rider will swing. I think we're going to see an exchange of instants here. So Mantis Rider attacks. Schauf is going to go for the Collected Company. Jeff will fetch and Dispel, I can only assume. And there we do. Jeff to 14. No Company for Scott. He does get to Scry from the Scion.
Yep, smartly stacked those triggers with the Collected Company in response. So if it did resolve, he'd be able to Scry after the fact, though just gets the Scry the way things played out.
Scott takes 3 off the Mantis Rider, down to 16. But now we go back to Schauf's turn where Jeff is tapped out, and Schauf has a second Collected Company in hand. He'll get that one off before any counter magic is available. And he finds Jace Catacomb Sifter. Big company there for Scott.
Yeah, the Jace will be able to flash it back once more, though now Jeff is aware of that, and he does still have that Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, you feel like Jeff's playing a tempo game here, right? He's going to attack in the air, maybe play a Knuckleblade, try to get damage in before Scott runs him out of counterspells. You look at Scott's hand. He has 2 rallies. He's got a Collected Company in the graveyard, a Jace in play to flash it back. Jeff can't counter all of these things, so maybe he can counter them long enough to kill Scott.
Right. Though notably, Scott has those 2 rallies. We saw him find a 3rd rally when he was looking at that last Collected Company.
Yeah, they're all still in the deck.
He's probably not feeling great to have drawn 2 copies. The graveyard's not offering really much of anything.
Here's Reflector Mage from Hoogland to bounce the Jace. Mantis Rider will hit again. We go back to Schauf. Draw is Elvish Visionary.
Yeah, if you turn one of those rallies into a Murderous Cut, this hand gets a lot better in this board.
We'll see. Maybe Schauf can reflect back. So here's Zulaport Cutthroat. Schauf will sack the Scion, drain Jeff 1, scry 1 twice. Probably just looking for lands. Maybe a second Cutthroat would be pretty good.
Yeah, or even just another Collected Company.
He will reflect the Mantis Rider. That's a huge play, though. It sets Jeff back so far.
Yeah. Connects for additional 2 points on this turn with the Cutthroat in play.
And let's not forget, on the life totals, that swing, Scott's actually still ahead.
Yeah.
You forget it because Jeff feels like the aggro player because he is.
Yeah. Typically the player that was casting Mantis Rider, which was the biggest creature we've seen him play to this point, and also connecting with it.
Here's Knuckle Blade from Jeff. He could have haste swung the Knuckle Blade, but opted not to. I guess he really realizes he needs that blocker.
Yeah, he's got to get in front of these 2/3s. His life total is again lower.
Yeah. That hurts that Jeff was not able to make an attack there.
Right. Also, in a lot of situations, Scott is more than happy to just throw Reflector Mage or the second Sifter in front there.
So for Scott, he plays Elvish Visionary. He draws a card. He plays Jace. We have 6 creatures on the board. Zulaport Cutthroat in play. Jeff's at 10. This is getting very scary for Hoogland. Just one Nantuko Husk would kill him. And he can't Disdainful Stroke his way out of it. So he'll try to win first. Here's Mantis Rider. Swinging, Scott's down to 11.
Yep, Mantis Rider puts the game closer, though Scott still ahead on life totals.
Rally, Visionary, Rally are Scott's remaining cards.
And the Jace will be active next turn, so kind of like there's a collected company on top of that.
Draw for Scott is a dual land. It's a Sunken Hollow. Scott will fetch first. Finds Canopy Vista. Mana's perfect here.
It's perfect, though he would like a little bit more. Really only able to cast one spell a turn.
Hasn't used the Jace yet. Imagine we'll see that. Here we go. A loot. What can he find? He finds... Is that a Murderous Cut? That would be great.
Yeah, Murderous Cut's a big swing here. That might even just eat the Disdainful Stroke out of Jeff, which opens up the ability to cast some very good spells.
Jace will plus to shrink that Mantis Rider down to a 1/3. Scott will play a land for the turn. We pass. Everything is looking like it's going his way. Draw for Hoogland's a Knuckle Blade.
That one's not super good here. He really just wants more copies of Mantis Rider.
Jeff will attack Scott down to 9. Here's a Knuckle Blade and a pass. We'll see if does Scott go for Murderous Cut on end step here. He just might. And not even worried. He draws another cut.
Yeah, with the Mantis Rider only attacking for 1 because of the Jace, not a really big threat.
Now remember, Murderous Cutting your way through Savage Knuckle Blades doesn't actually work at this point. The second ability on Knuckle Blade is for 3 mana, Jeff can return them to his hand. Now, the hand and the graveyard might be the same place to Scott when he has Hoogland low.
Scott decides he wants to scry, and the best way to do that is to attack for 2 into a bunch of giant creatures.
So he drains Hoogland for 1. He's going to scry 1 twice. He'll keep it on top both times. Jace will shrink down. I'm assuming the Mantis Rider again.
Yeah, it just has to be.
And here's second Mantis Rider for Hoogland. That should get a Murderous Cut.
Yeah, it does not make any sense to wait any longer on these.
Here is 5 mana. And look at Jeff with the Discipline on Disdainful Stroke. He's not going to counter the Murderous Cut. Instead, he just deals Scott 1.
Yeah, fighting over Mantis Rider is really just not... You're progressing your board, but you're not winning the game, and resolving Collected Company or Rally the Ancestors could just make you lose the game.
Danger here. Nantuko Husk the draw for Scott. That was the piece he was missing.
That's huge. Can't Disdainful Stroke that one either.
And Jeff is at 9. Scott's at 8. There are 6 creatures in play. You're getting really close to Jeff just being dead to these Zulaport Cutthroats.
Yeah, this is Rally close to game.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Had that one in my pocket.
He'll fetch for Fairy Stream. I mean, and Scott can mini rally here, right? He can just sacrifice all the 2-drops and then rally for 2. Something like that. If he wants to be safe, he doesn't have to all in like he did. Game 2, he all in on rallies and then got blown out by counter spells.
Right. Going that aggressive here after this many turns of Jeff just holding cards in his hand.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I don't think that will be what we see.
Drains Jeff. Scry 1 twice. Looking for a second cutthroat. That's what I would think.
Cutthroat would be great. I think he'd be happy to keep like a duress on top as well, just so he knows exactly what to do with all these rallies.
Sure, that sounds great. Scry 1 twice to the bottom. And that's it. He's not going to sacrifice any of these blockers. Draw is Windswept Teeth. Well, that one didn't really work out for him. But let's see what he wants to do with Jace. He has it all the way up to 8. He's getting to the point where he could flashback Collected Company if he wanted, or he could just start jamming rallies.
Yeah, I think that before I got too trigger happy with that, I would find out if this murderous cut resolves.
Right. Well, why? So Jace, Mantis Rider swings Scott down to 8. I'm betting he's just going to rally on end step. Just start firing them off. Draw 2 cards. If you had rally for 2 and got 2 visionaries here, like, you're pretty happy with that, aren't you?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to see him wait. And it's entirely possible that these small sacrifices are expressly just looking for duress, and he's not going to be happy to do anything until he finds it.
7 to 7. Jeff swings again. Here's a Jace for him. Now, that is some pressure. Will he rally on end step? No, he is waiting. Finds a Jace of his own.
Starting to get into waiting too long.
I wanted to be pulling the trigger on these rallies. Just rally for 2, because even 2 should kill him, right?
Yeah.
2 Elvish Visionary, draw 2 cards.
Yeah,
this is enough. Jeff has to counter it. You have a lot of spells.
Takes very few additional bodies to just be lethal with that Nantuko Husk.
All right, Jeff down to 6. Here are some scries. Ooh, he found one he liked. This was on upkeep.
Yeah, nice little sequence happened there. Activated the Jace to loot and sacrificed it to Husk in response. That's pretty spicy.
Oh, sure.
You get to poke with the Cutthroat where you wouldn't have to if you sacrificed a Planeswalker.
Jace is going to flip for Hoogland. And now that the rally for 2 is lethal, I think we'll see Scott go for it.
Yeah, not casting a lethal spell when you have 2 and you can't cast both on the same turn just does not make a lot of sense.
You have more than 2 because Jace can start flashing them back.
Right.
You know, how many counter spells are we putting Jeff on having?
5.
It looks like we're murderous cutting here on the Mantis Rider. Gonna pass the turn. And now it is go. Rally for 2. This one's not going to resolve. It can't. And Jeff will just concede. He has Disdainful Stroke. Right. He could cast it.
Could counter it once, but when it's countered, it goes to the graveyard. Jace will just flash it back. Jeff's not going to mess around.
So in 3, Scott Schauf, 4-color rally. He improves to 5-0, handing Jeff Hoogland his first loss of the day.
Yeah, and Jeff's strength in that matchup is just getting flying creatures that can go over the top of rally. The Savage Knuckleblade is going to have a lot of trouble actually breaking through, and we saw Jeff, he drew some Mantis Riders, but Scott's Jace and the murderous cuts were able to keep them in line.